Junior Dos Santos, Francis Ngannou, another fight announcement, UFC 215. I believe it's in Edmonton. I couldn't tell you when, maybe in the month of September. Ken Flo, Francis Ngannou, I think splitting time between Vegas and France, or maybe he's full-time in Vegas now at the UFC Performance Institute, among other places. This dude is an absolute monster, and certainly these guys, in terms of their career trajectory, are going in opposite directions. Far be it from me to doubt what a borderline future UFC Hall of Famer in Junior Dos Santos can do in this situation. But I don't know, man, off of what we saw last time out from JDS against Stipe, and maybe I'm reading too much into that, but I wouldn't want anywhere near this monster. Of course, JDS is all for it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's a very different fight, though. You know, what Stipe has is that threat of the takedown. And for Junior Dos Santos, he doesn't let his hands go as much when he's threatened by a takedown or is fearing that clinch position. I think against a striker, he will be willing to let his hands go a little bit more. Now, it doesn't mean it's a less dangerous fight, because obviously Ngannou, he'll take those combos. He will trade with you, obviously, and has tremendous knockout power. But facing a guy like Junior Dos Santos and kind of looking at his recent performances can really set you up for disaster. You cannot sleep on someone with Junior Dos Santos. Dos Santos, I believe, still has power. He still has speed. He doesn't really have to worry about the takedown so much against someone like Ngannou, so I think he's going to let his hands go. And if he lands against any heavyweight in the world, Dos Santos will knock you out. So I think for Ngannou, he's got to show respect for someone like Junior Dos Santos. He's got to be careful when he moves forward and sets up those combination strikes. He's got to find a way to get off that center line, not attack in a linear fashion, which we've seen him do sometimes. Against Dos Santos, you just can't do that. So I'm curious to see what Ngannou's approach is. If he gets the win, I think this is one of the fights that will legitimately say, Francis Ngannou is exactly what we thought he is, and that means he's a beast. So you beat Dos Santos, and he's legit. That's one of those fights that will definitely legitimize Ngannou as a contender in the heavyweight division.
And I think the fight makes a lot of sense, because for Junior Dos Santos, there are a few fights out there that have as much upside as this one, because Francis Ngannou is all the rage. I was just filming something for a UFC Top 10 show, I think on FS1 or Fight Pass, and we did a whole thing on Francis Ngannou, and I think he deserves it too. I really think that 2 months from now, when Ken Flo's got to pick the fight, he's going to land with the Cameroonian Frenchman, I believe, is how you put it, Francis Ngannou. All right, also, Tyron Woodley, Damian Maia. Woodley's a busy man. We're going to try to grab him for 5 minutes today, but I don't think it's going to happen at this point. So his fight with Damian Maia, Ken Flo, you announced it. You guys broke the news on UFC Tonight last week. And this is, again, 26 days from now. Tyron wanted to fight in July. Ideally, it was going to be on 2/13. I think now this is potentially the bigger payday for him. Actually, I would probably say, without question, this is a bigger payday for him alongside John Jones and Daniel Cormier at UFC 214. But payday aside, it seems to be on a good timeline for Tyron. Relatively quick turnaround for him after UFC 209 in March against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. But I think the bigger story here is Damian Maia. Overdue and deserving of this title fight, and now it comes not all that long after he goes through a very hard fight against Jorge Gamebred Masvidal, and certainly beggars can't be choosers when it comes to this title fight. But as someone who 3 times competed for a UFC title fight, is it fair of me to say not ideal for Maia to finally get this title shot after 8 or 9 straight wins and have it come, you know, on relatively short notice after a tough fight?
I assume it's not as ideal for Damian Maia for a couple of reasons. You know, he's a little bit older now. He's getting close to 40. He's almost as old as John Anik, right? I mean, what, is he 38? Is he 38, 39?
I'm gonna look it up. He's old.
Yeah. So, anyways, I mean, yeah. Oh, yeah. He's a fossil at this point. No, Damian Maia is getting a little bit older. So I think turnaround time-wise, I think it's ideal for him to have about 3 to 4 months in between fights. And you add to the fact that this is a guy who used to fight at middleweight. He's not a small welterweight. I think it is a little bit more challenging for him, especially at his age, to get down to 170 pounds. It definitely takes a lot of discipline, diet-wise, conditioning, all those things. And as you get older, of course, you know, your body accumulates a lot of different injuries. So I think this definitely favors Tyron Woodley, and I don't know for sure, but I would assume that Tyron Woodley, he's a very calculated individual, very smart, and I think this is kind of a part of his plan. Put the pressure, put the stress on Damian Maia a little bit. You fight on my terms. You have to take this fight. You're the contender. I'm the champ.
I'm trying to think back to Robbie Lawler and Tyron Woodley. I believe it was a pretty quick turnaround for Robbie Lawler that night. They fought July 30th in Atlanta. I'm just trying to see here when Robbie Lawler fought. Damian Maia, by the way, 40 years old in November of this year. So 1977, baby, Ken Flo. Ken Flo still got that 76 on him.
Right.
So let's see. So Robbie Lawler fought Tyron Woodley, UFC 201, July 30th of 2016, Robert Glenn Lawler. We also got to talk about that Lawler-Cerrone thing. So for Robbie Lawler, I feel like that was a relatively quick turnaround that night. He fought Carlos Condit in January, so it wasn't. But Robbie Lawler would take a lot of time off thereafter. So for Damian Maia, right, you mentioned the weight cut. It's a 5-round fight, Ken Flo.
Yep.
So he's won 7 in a row, and maybe people thought he deserved the title fight after 6 straight wins. Won 7 in a row. Close fight against Jorge Masvidal that, in my humble opinion, could have gone either way, but was a tough fight for Damian. You mentioned the weight cut, 5-round fight. I would think he would want more time to prepare. He's not going to get it, and now that fight is later this month. So very excited to see how that plays out. I think Tyron Woodley will open as the betting favorite to defend his title. All right, little Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather update for you, if you'll indulge me, since it's my birthday, I guess. A few betting lines, and I guess I just want to sort of get the pulse of this thing from your perspective. If any of these bets interest you, I've sort of said my magic number for betting on Conor McGregor is plus 700, right? $200 to pay $1,400 or whatever it's going to be. Just to win the fight. So right now, Conor McGregor is plus 503. Floyd Mayweather is minus 706. So it was as low as plus 425. It seems to be inching back up a little bit. So getting closer to that range. You can get Conor McGregor by knockout or TKO right now at plus 625. So I do think that if Conor wins this fight, it's not going to be on points. It is going to be by knockout or TKO. So we're getting a little bit closer there, Ken Flo. Plus 625. I mean, for your pocket, maybe a dime to pay $62.50. Not a terrible. I don't know. What do you think?
No, it's not bad at all. And like you said, I mean, if Conor wins this fight, it will be by knockout or TKO. And I mean, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Do it for a guy who has been doubted his whole life, a guy who has crazy knockout power, a guy who is going to be much larger than Mayweather. And I think it's only going to make the fight that much more exciting. But I think there is a possibility that he could catch him. It absolutely could happen. Mayweather's getting a little bit older. Will I put money down on the fight? I don't know at this point, but I think it is an interesting bet to think about. No doubt about that.
Well, you've also said, and we both have said, that we feel like Floyd has a 90% chance to win the fight.
Yeah.
And we can certainly make a strong argument for that 10% in terms of Conor's skills and his self-belief and everything that sort of encompasses his total package. But another bet that I was looking at, Floyd Mayweather by decision is plus 205. I'm just not of the belief that Floyd's going to get Conor out of there, and maybe it'll be an accumulation type of knockout, as we've mentioned on this show several times, Kenny. But if Floyd wins this fight, do you think it's by decision, and therefore you like that plus 205 range?
I don't think Floyd stops Conor. It's possible, obviously, but I don't think he stops him. I don't think he knocks him out cold. And yeah, I think that Conor, being the bigger man, I think he reads his opponents pretty well. I think he might take a lot of shots during the fight, for sure. But I don't think he's going to get stopped. I really don't.
Mayweather by knockout or TKO is at minus 140. You might actually get the DQ with that prop as well. I'm not sure. Now, Conor McGregor to get disqualified is plus 503.
Oh, wow.
And if he goes to the John Anik school of, headbutts and low blows early on in this fight, then I think there's some value on McGregor DQ, but plus 503. No, and I think he'll be smart about it. But again, I think, get violent in there. When Floyd's holding, as he always does, dude, throw that big head. Try to change the complexion of this thing.
I heard there was something, though, in the contract that said if Conor
Yes.
goes against the rules, well, what happens? He doesn't get paid or what?
Well, but the thing is, bro, boxing, there are headbutts and low blows.
Right,
I think if he throws an elbow or he throws a kick or he goes for a takedown, but I've seen Mayweather fights where he sort of has tripped his opponent down inadvertently, if I'm not mistaken. You know, so for Conor to, in a clinch situation, knowing that Floyd Holt, throw his head to one side and just try to sort of add a dynamic or a variable into the fight, I don't think that would cost him any money. But you're right. Maybe some of those contractual provisions would give him pause to get a little bit too dirty in there. I don't know.
Sure. I mean, listen, there's some boxing people out there that consider the head kind of the second jab, if you will. If you miss with the jab, you come in with the head. And hey, if your head doesn't move and it's just you're going in the way of the jab, it could happen. But no, these are some of the kind of the dirty tricks you'll see people pulling there. Mike Tyson was trying to do, obviously, a bunch to Holyfield. Or Holyfield, he was claiming Holyfield was headbutting him a lot, which made him lose his cool. And, of course, everyone saw it when he went against the rules and bit his ear. But those are some of the things that perhaps Conor might use to get Floyd emotional, to get him out of his comfort zone, to get him to do something stupid. And if he does something stupid, Conor will be there to catch him. So there are some little tricks of the trade that Conor may use for sure.
And I know a lot of people don't necessarily like this line of thinking, but to those who think there's a 0% chance that Conor McGregor wins this fight, the conversation with me stops there. And as far as the footage that's out there, right? I mean, I've never enjoyed watching somebody train by themselves than Floyd Mayweather. And I know, Kenny, you probably agree. It's just a spectacle to watch this guy avoid a bag and hit a bag of any kind. But juxtaposed against McGregor's footage, I just don't care about that stuff. I'm not going to read too much into any video that is out there on Conor. And when it comes to what Floyd can do, Kenny, we've all seen it. It's legendary.